Niku. You know her, the extraterrestrial, hovering, voice-mimicking alien that frontlines Hotline 024. But how well do we really know her, and everyone else for that matter? Here's 10 things about Hotline 024. Alright, before we get into it, if you like these type of videos and want to see more, hit that funny red button to be the first to see them. We are just a unicorn whisper away from 200k, and I want you to be there. Alright, let's get into it. Hotline 024 is a massive Friday Night Funkin' mod with almost 2 hours of banger songs, multiple characters, and a few secrets for those keen enough to find them. Despite the size, this mod is still just a demo, as many players have noted the locked story mode menu when booting up the game. But that doesn't mean that the story is completely closed off to us. We'll talk more about that later. Hotline 024 is created by Potions and Spices, a conglomerate of over 80 members in all departments bound together to create mods. Hotline's production is helmed by musician Saruki, who produced music for Indie Cross, Versus Shaggy, and a personal favorite, Versus Cassette Girl. The flagship character of this mod, Niku, makes for a formidable opponent during her tracks due to her innate ability to mimic the voices of other people and any sound. This is fitting, as most of the tracks in the medley update are focused on mashups, similar to Hideki Naganuma's style of composition. Niku is even seen stealing inputs from the player's side when mimicking Boyfriend. Niku is one of few mod characters that the player gets to pick the style of for certain songs, with 4 variants of the character. If it wasn't obvious already, Niku isn't from our world, and is actually part of a race of people called the Polygurians. She crash-landed on our planet years prior to this mod, and was captured and experimented on by a mysterious organization before escaping to the abandoned mall where she faces off against Boyfriend. While singing, Niku's hat glows in correspondence to the notes pressed, and she doesn't use her mouth. Her mouth can be seen during the song Hyperfunk when recreating Tankman's Ugh, but only with the original skin. Polygurians communicate through telepathy and thus have no voices of their own, which is why Niku doesn't use her mouth to communicate so much as she uses it to eat empanadas. The 2 headlining extra songs are date-themed, so let's start with Heart Forecast. Gogo and Momo are a pair of girlfriends out on a date to the shopping mall. Gogo has very similar features to Niku, with jagged black hair, rectangular pupils, and rigid edges to her figure, telling of a Polygurian lineage. The most notable feature, however, is that she uses her mouth to sing, unlike Niku. Is she pretending that's her own voice, or is she a special variant of Polygurian? We just don't know until this character is expanded upon in a future update. As for her girlfriend Momo, her most noticeable feature was entirely an accident. According to this tweet from Saruki, Momo's... Am I allowed to say boobs? No? Okay. Momo's friggin' Ubers were much smaller, but the concept drawing sent to artist's sugar ratio was disproportionate to the original design, thus creating the Momo we see now. Saruki also followed up by saying that Momo is wearing a bikini to the mall simply because that was the character's only design at the time, and that she'll be expanded on in future updates. It's likely that the song takes place before the events of the main free play tracks, considering that the shops in the mall aren't abandoned like in the main Niku stages. The next headlining extra is Date at the End of the World, or Armageddon, featuring Niku and Rude Number 1. Rude Number 1 is artist and animator Banham's OC, a comic character brought to life. According to their introduction video produced by Banham's, Rude's design was based on V-Tan, but not their personality, citing they're an asshole, but not a racist. Rude resides in the comic world, a place where comic book characters meet and exist, but Rude is unique in that he can travel in and out of these comics given they're the right size. In tune with his personality, Rude Number 1's vocals are based on the you heard throughout Armageddon. Rude Number 1 and Niku are dating, and a funny thing to note about their song Armageddon is that they stand around the same height, despite Rude being almost a full foot taller, meaning he's either hitting that power squat or she's floating to compensate. Now you're probably thinking, if Rude Number 1 is so good, where's Rude Number 2? You'd be surprised to know that Banham's has teased several characters from the comic world, including Rude Number 1's counterpart, who's seen holding the other half of the cereal box our angry friend has. They're fighting over cereal. One of Niku's alternate skins is based on the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure character Jotaro Kujo, but that isn't where the JoJo references end. The song Killer Queen contains many motifs of JoJo anime openings and themes: Il Vento d'Oro or Giorno's theme, Bloody Stream, Stardust Crusaders, and Diamond is Unbreakable openings. The building in the background of the stage looks like the high school from Part 4, which is most notable in the shading of the trees, and the song named Killer Queen is the name of Part 4 villain Yoshikage Kira's stand. There's also a brief flash during the 3-minute mark where Boyfriend and Niku are depicted in JoJo's art style, likely referencing the fight between Jotaro and Kira near the end of JoJo Part 4. Niku's directional animations in this form are all references to JoJo poses, like Jotaro's iconic point and that one part in Torture Dance. Route number 1 also poses like Jotaro in their teased animations, so I guess that's something the couple has in common. All of the covers featured in the medley update are songs Saraki has worked on for previous mods. Thunderstorm from Vs. Shaggy, CG Mega Mix from Vs. Cassette Girl, Promenade from Friday Night Funkin' Entity, and Deathmatch from Friday Night Funkin' Corrupted. It would be simple for Saraki to just overlay new vocals over existing tracks due to them having the song stems, but that isn't the case. Each of these covers are actually cleverly disguised remixes of their previous versions. For example, Death Battle is actually every base Friday Night Funkin' song in a trench coat, as the motifs and voices of almost every base game song are used in this track. Pretty much what I'm saying is to describe these songs as covers is a vast understatement. I've been bumping it to the CG Mega Mix for the past like 2 months. Just when you thought it was over, behind Lock and Key there are another 8 bonus songs. Keen-eyed players will notice a 4-digit number in the background of Fandom Mania, 2480. Inputting this code into the numpad in the extras menu will reveal the codes for 8 new tracks. Don't worry about memorizing these codes, because once the player inputs the initial one, the others appear next to the keypad alongside the names of the tracks if they've been previously played. One of these extra songs gives us a bit of a window into the lore of Hotline 024. In Extraterrestrial, we see Niku facing off against Zygmunt from Martian Mixtape. During this track, we see a younger Niku flying her spacecraft through the occasional meteor patch. We know she crashed on Earth, but this likely takes place in a different galaxy entirely based on the fact that there are 2 suns in such close proximity. If this isn't the case, and this isn't actually a second sun, I would say Niku is flying through the asteroid belt in close proximity to Mars, which is one of the planets closest to Earth. That would make sense, as their opponent Zygmunt is from Mars. Majin Sonic's inclusion in Hotline 024 comes from a desire to create a more unsettling version of the character than that of the one in Vs. Sonic EXE. To differentiate the two, this version is referred to as Ma Zin with a Z, and was given a more creepy appearance with high prominent cheekbones and large grinning teeth. According to tweets from Bantams, the Ma Zin henchmen are named Bibbidi, Bobbidi, and Boo, and there's a 4th one that has yet to be revealed. There's also a single unused frame in Ma Zin's sprite sheet that seems to be a reference to the no bitches meme. Taking a closer look at the sprites reveals that the screen on the CRT was overlaid with RGB pixels to make the character actually appear as if they're in the TV, as opposed to the usual technique of adding scan lines. Just a little something I picked up on. The song Expergated is a personal favorite and a love letter to Funkin modding, featuring many motifs and samples from other well-known mods, which is expected considering the fact that the song name is based on expurgation from Vs. Tricky. But then at the 20-second mark, the vocals sharply turn to the motif of Ballistic from Vs. Witty. From there, it becomes quickly apparent that this isn't just a cover, as we begin to hear the familiar voices and motifs from some of the most well-known mods like Vs. Tabby, Hex, Garcello, and Shaggy. I don't have time today to sit and name every reference, but I suggest you go and give this track a listen when you get the chance, because in my opinion, it's the best song on the set list. We touched on the lore of Hotline 024 earlier in the video, so now let's take a deeper dive into what we know. It is important to note before we get into it that Saraki has stated that the Hotline and Sunset Hills have different lore, so keep that in mind. If we go back into the original set of 8 codes we were given to unlock the bonus song, there's actually a 9th code hidden under Let's Have Some Fun. Adjusting the brightness to make it more visible reveals the code 2515. When put into the keypad, we're shown an image of a bloodied scrap of paper with the caption "Hidden Inside" and a picture of an eye on a folder. Diving into the game files reveals a folder called The Blind Eye and a subfolder called arc_sunset_hills. Within the subfolder there are 3 files and another hidden subfolder called The Truth Is Always Hidden. The first file, dash.png, is a letter from a mysterious YM, advising the reader to remember, and the truth will shine. Sunset_hills.mp3 is a short melodic tune with a lot of long notes and reverb, giving the feeling of calm and emptiness. The next image, memory.png, is a very similar message sprawled across a Rorschach with a partial YouTube video link. This link brings us to a video simply titled Mother, which recounts a young Niku having a discussion about God with her mother that quickly becomes unsettling the moment Niku questions their supposed creator. Niku then asks if they can bring her next time, and when questioned who, the video quickly corrupts and ends. The description of this video brings us to an even more unsettling video called Found. It's of an unknown figure, telling the viewer that they can't hide and will be found, telling them, see you soon. We're then taken to an Imager link featuring a young figure with some sort of unsightly being moments away from grabbing them. This figure is different from Niku, most notably their large circular glasses. The image is accompanied by 4 more codes for the keypad. 0024 brings us to a family portrait with Niku's mother and who we can assume is Nico's father, but with 2 smaller figures in the front blacked out. The father in this image can also be seen in Hotline 024's options menu. With the mention of her in the mother video and the young figure with glasses from the Imager folder matching the appearance of one of the smaller figures, we can now assume that Niku has a sister around her age. We know Niku's last name is Morioka, and the first few letters of her name from mother is YO, meaning the letter in the initial folder initialed YM is likely from Niku's sister. 7154 brings us to an image of a giant looming figure hovering over a Polygarian with faint text that reads "The Fake God." Code 1566 brings us to a hard to interpret at first image of a Polygarian's bloody face. This is the only image without music. Slowly, a pair of trembling eyes appear and vanish. Finally, code 2119 brings us to an entire new song, Astral Projection, where a younger sounding Niku faces off against her transformed mother. Halfway through the song, she becomes more corrupt with imagery of error pop-ups and Niku's mother appearing as if they're rendering incorrectly and corrupting. We then go back to the hidden folder, The Truth Is Always Hidden, to find 3 more files. The first of which is a text document featuring ASCII art of Niku's mother, then an image called Armageddon, which features Niku's father with an apple in their head. And lastly, an image called Signals featuring a young Polygarian child I'm assuming is Niku's sister. And those are the major points of the Hotline 024 Sunset Hills ARG. The story is still unfolding and being told through episodic releases on Saraki's channel in the style of analog horror like the Mandela catalog. At the time of writing this, there's 4 episodes, so if you like the Sunset Hills story and lore, I highly recommend checking it out. Alright, that was 10 things about Hotline 024. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and until next time.